You guys, it's like hunting season. The other day I was at, I got my period at the One Direction 3D movie, like 1D. Do you guys know that, like, I got my period? Anyway, I don't really know. I guess I'm here because I'm supposed to read. I guess I'm supposed to read for you. Okay, so fuck. Let's start again. You're grown up and somehow your mom's a yoga teacher and you're at the One Direction 3D movie and you got your period at the One Direction movie and your mom's a yoga teacher and she's telling you all the time, like, that you have to breathe, like you don't know how to breathe properly. Like, to breathe probably would involve some kind of like conscious sharing of air, like around you, or some hippy dippy, like, let's all touch shit. It's like she doesn't really get it. You just want to touch some people some of the time. Like, you're wearing this like gothy black dress and like, there's popcorn and there's a sparkly backpack and it matches everybody else's eyeliner in the room, and it's like, between your teeth you're sort of humming this like saccharine reassurance, this like you don't really, well, it's just like this packaged affect of the like the good life, the everything life, the like we love you even though you don't know you're beautiful life, even if like BT dubs you don't, like, come on, insert your name here, you can't hide up here forever. Your roommate's yelling at you from your bedroom doorway, and she's like, today's the day. U.S. American residents have hailed today's birth of some kind of like white buffalo, more properly like North American bison, I think, as like some kind of like major religious event, this sort of like long prophesied return of the white buffalo calf boy. And you're like, yes, I can stay in bed. And who the fuck wants to be away for that anyway, you say as you pulled the pillow over your head, and there's this like clenching in your gut, and you look at this screen because like through this like 1D 3D portal will pass some of the like most beautiful horses in the world, and like one of your jobs is to ride the fence line. Like, these horses are far from being the brightest animals in the world, and their favorite habit is kind of to like stick their heads through the wide mesh of the fence in an effort to like race on the other side. And then of course you like watch their horns tangle, and then they stick, they become stuck, it becomes necessary for you to ride this fence continually, otherwise these animals would sort of simply starve to death in their self-imposed pillories. But anyway, back to the thing. It's okay, so it's like you've broken up with the animal you were dating just like 2 weeks before, and you haven't gone out of your apartment even once. Like, even though you've broken up with the bastard, you still feel like shit, and you don't feel like putting up with the public stupidness, obviously, but like anyone kind of knows what's happening with this calf boy is supposedly like the second coming of Christ on the island of the Americas. It's like there's some legend that he'll return and unify the nations of the four colors, like black, red, yellow, and white. So it doesn't really matter that you're kind of upset. You're just like trying to keep breathing through this breakup, through this sort of like global phenomenon. But what everybody really knows is like this breathing is kind of like touching. Do you guys like that we're like sharing right now? I really like that we're like sharing right now, because like what sharing does, right, is like kind of open us up to the fact that like this air is the air that it's always like traced by the expiration of the other, and like vice versa, right? Like there's this sort of like difference that's produced in relation to breath. And maybe the best example of this is like it's like when you think of Tumblr, it's not just like your Tumblr dashboard, but it's like a memory of a screenshot of your Tumblr dashboard that's on your Tumblr dashboard. And there's like a screenshot that says like how many people has Walter White, I mean, I don't know if you guys watch Breaking Bad, it's like how many people has Walter White killed, and then like how many people has Superman killed, and then it's like how many people has Taylor Swift dated, and you're just like, wow, that like really speaks to me. Just like how when you read about, it's just like you're just like, wow, like it's just like so nerdy that you really like are trying to relate to things in this way. So you like kind of reach for your inhaler because you're that much of a dork, and it's like making you really breathless. And but then you're back at the 1D 3D movie, and then your fingers clench around this like bottle of poppers, and you take a deep breath because like, so your flatmate finally walks up to the bed and pulls the comforters off of you, and she drags you out of bed, and she's like, we're going out now. And you groan, and you imagine that, like, I mean, everybody wants to like meet a new someone, but like you worry that when you question him about his like supernatural credentials, he won't respond with sort of like, insert your name here, I hope so, or some sort of equivalent, like, I don't know, before too long, let's hope, insert your name here, what do you say? And yet you guess that, when you would note this legend, the one that we've been taught since we've been little, has come to fruition, like nobody should settle for less than a miracle. so you're walking with your friend, and she's like, "Isn't this nice? Like, see, now we can finally talk. There's like plenty more bulls in the pen, you know, like plenty more of them, like grazing in meadows all around the world. I mean, like some white bull calf named Jelly was born on like 20th of August in Wisconsin. Not that you're desperate or anything, because it's Wisconsin, but like for all intents and purposes, he could probably be your salvation." You shrug. You're like, "I don't know. I'll never find a calf of my own." But it's true. Someone told me the other day that some elder had received signs that like a calf boy miracle would soon return. He said he was born on a white man's farm as an omen to the white people, and he prophesied that his father might die so that he might live. And she takes her hands off your shoulders and puts them back in her pockets, and she's like, "You know what? I'm gonna go to the bathroom. You sit right there and you don't move." And she leaves you there, and you're checking Facebook, and it's just like boring. You're like, "I should just like really be in bed." And suddenly like someone comes up to you and they're like, "Is this seat taken?" And you hear this voice next to you, and you look up and you make eye contact with basically like the most beautiful blonde creature ever. And you stumble over your words, and you're like, "No, I guess this seat is free." And you can't help but stare at this stranger, and he looks over at you, and you blush. This must be white buffalo calf boy miracle, or at least a calf approaching like miracle status at any rate. Like this miracle isn't an albino, like he has brown eyes and a brown muzzle, and he's like, "You want some?" And he holds his ice cream cone up to you, and speculation kind of insists that he might take on a browner shade when he sheds his coat next spring, although he appears to be too white for this to really happen. So one. So there's the dream of a sacred body that's like absolutely untouchable can only be a contradiction in sort of recognizing difference in the world, which means that two, an absolute untouchability of oneself presumes that like none is worthy of contact with oneself, which means like three, in other words, in a case where like an absolute untouchable body is achieved, you can actually like destroy someone else's entire world, like a whole universe rejected like a bad tissue sample. Anyway, you're like, "Oh no, I don't want any ice cream," you say, really embarrassed. And he's like, "Why don't I buy you some?" And he takes out his wallet, and you're like, "Fine, I don't need any ice cream." He's like, "Are you sure?" And you're like, "Positive." And he says, "Well, you know, when you want some ice cream, you should give me a call." And he takes your hand and writes his number on it, and you make a note of where he touches you for later, because you know that the genetic tests you'll run will confirm whether or not this miracle has any trace of like domesticated cattle in his ancestry, which is something, as you guys know, we should really all keep an eye out for. "I'm Harry/Niall/Louis/Zane, by the way," he says, from, you know, One Direction. And you're like, "I'm insert your name here. Nice to meet you. Insert your name here." He says, like, "So I've mentioned all of this. I mentioned all of this before, but like I suppose it bears repeating. Like all miracles, all of this has happened before and will happen again. Like it's true that like I don't personally know how to show my affection except like glaring and scratching and fetching small dead animals in my mouth. But now, like not actually being an animal, I don't pretend to be able to like diagnose for myself. Like this is just how this template works. Like from Twitter to how to like touch." I sometimes like to lay with my head partially underwater in the bathtub. I'll like turn the lights off and close my eyes. And sometimes I imagine I'm in the library doing the Columbine shooting, and the One Direction boys are there with me, and it creates these like really vivid hallucinations. And sometimes if I'm really lucky, I can imagine myself like fucking them one after the other in the midst of all the chaos.